Canelo got to stop picking his own opponents, man. He needs to be in there with Charlo, those guys, both of them. He needs to fight both of them.
Charlo.
He needs to fight both of them. Then fight that guy Benavidez.
Are they same way?
Benavidez, though.
Benavidez. Fight both of them. So we gotta get ready for Benavidez. He's gonna fight those two brothers, then he fight Benavidez. Man, if I was him, I'd be fighting 4 times a day. Yeah, but he did good his last fight, but the guy he fought was like soft. I want to see him fight one of those guys.
David Benavidez is pretty good.
Ooh, the tall guy, right?
Yeah,
I like him, but I just think that
he's good.
I do. I love him. But I think Canelo's too elusive for him.
What you think about fighting Charlo?
Huh? I think that'd be a good fight too. I think he's too strong, but I think that'd be a good fight.
He's a little bigger than Charlo.
He's too strong. This guy's a fucking ox, like that wall.
Yeah.
It's gonna be hard to beat him in the middle. You gotta fight 168 with him.
68, yeah.
But that other guy, Benavidez, he's
entertaining.
He's
good.
He's
for real.
Yeah. Strong, boom, boom, boom.
I watched him even when he was like younger, 16.
He's tough.
Yeah,
he's
tough.
always
Always been good.
I like to see that. I want to see him fight one of the Charlos.
Yeah, Charlo, that'd be good too. They should all get together and
Yeah, nobody should be apprehensive. This you guys be friends. You should fight each other. That's what friends do. They help each other to get money. You know what I'm saying?
60-40 and 70-30 splits.
Say what?
They're doing 60-40 and 70-30 splits.
Who?
A lot of these fighters, they're
No,
not trying to
What
do
at the fighters is the promoters.
Listen, I don't use promoters, right?
So Mike Tyson tells Canelo Alvarez to stop picking his fights, which is a nice way of saying, a political way of telling someone to stop cherry picking. Mike Tyson also followed up by telling Canelo Alvarez, instead of fighting a soft guy like Yildirim, Canelo Alvarez needs to fight the Charlo twins and David Benavidez. This is the legend, the myth, the one and only Iron Mike, co-signing us new media and everything we have been reporting all this long. Now we can go ahead and add Mike Tyson to the long list of all the legendary fighters that's demanding Canelo Alvarez to behave like a champion and fight the best. From Eric Morales, Barrera Marquez, Oscar De La Hoya, Chavez Sr., Hopkins, all of these legendary champions. They all told Canelo Alvarez to be great, you have to fight Charlo and Andre. Canelo was also told by Hopkins, the only fight he wants to see right now is Charlo versus Canelo. That's the only fight that matters for Canelo Alvarez. If that's not enough, perhaps Ryan Garcia, Teofimo Lopez, fighters that look up to Canelo, even old media decaf wizards, such as Maximum Hypocrisy Kellerman. All of these guys have demanded and requested Canelo to fight Charlo. And can you believe Canelo Alvarez continues to avoid every single Black American undefeated fighter, including undefeated Mexican fighters, which by doing so, Canelo Alvarez co-signed and proved Terrence Crawford's statements about Canelo to be 100% accurate. Furthermore, what is Canelo Alvarez fans are going to say now? Are they going to claim Mike Tyson is hating for wanting to see the best versus the best? Because let the Canelo Alvarez fans tell it. They cool and satisfied watching Canelo versus Yildirim, a fighter coming off a loss and a 2-year layoff, that Canelo Alvarez handpicked and personally requested the WBC president, Suleiman, to order the fight for David Benavidez' WBC vacant title. Now we know is a fact Canelo requested to fight Yildirim a year ago. Nevertheless, that don't stop the Canelo Alvarez fanboys to defend Canelo at all costs by claiming, oh, that's his mandatory though. These same fans that want to use that made-up story are the same fans that defend Canelo for surrendering his belt by giving up his WBC title the pride of Mexico, to his mandatory Jamal Charlo, which was an embarrassment to the sport. That's the definition of a fake champion, when a fighter gives up his belt to avoid a particular opponent that the fans have been begging Canelo to fight for years. That's when Canelo made up a whole belt, the NBF Witness Protection Franchise, No Black Fighters franchise, in which Canelo Alvarez happened to be the pioneer of this organization, in which 6ix9ine have petitioned for the witness protection, since this franchise tops any witness protection franchise, hands down. Now that I'm thinking about it, Canelo Alvarez started a duck organization. This is why Andre told Canelo Alvarez to grow some cojones. Andre said it, not me. And Canelo never responded to Andre. That's why he's the pioneer and the entrepreneur of this duck organization. If you need to duck any opponent in the sport of boxing, call Canelo and petition for the NBF franchise. And to all of the decafs that want to claim, well, Andre, he never had anything to offer, this is why Canelo never fought him. And negative. Andre was a champion at 154 back when Canelo was not a champion. Andre offered Canelo Alvarez to fight him for his WBO belt. Canelo declined respectfully. Meanwhile, Andre continued to disrespect Canelo by calling him the B word, puta, no cojones. I had to Google these things to find out what they meant, in which I was extremely shocked the moment Andre vacated his WBO belt. Literally the next day, Canelo requested to fight Smith for that same belt Andre was offering him the whole time. Now think about it. Canelo turned down a fight with Jamal Charlo. Jamal, not Jamal, in which that caused Golden Boy to lose Jamal. Canelo Alvarez had the audacity to fight both of the Smith brothers in Texas. However, he fought none of the Charlo twins that's from Texas, which is mind-blowing. Like I said before, if the Charlo twins want to fight Canelo, Jamal and Jamal need to change their last name to Smith. Jamal Smith, Jamal Smith. That will definitely ring a bell on Canelo's head, since he's on this Europe tour at the moment in time. See, Canelo's goal was to be undisputed at middleweight. But since the NBF rule is in full effect, no black fighters, he had to escape that division ASAP, since Jamal Charlo and Andre campaigned there. Now all of a sudden, Canelo changed his plan from becoming undisputed at 160 to 168, since 168 is full of European champions. Now, it's one thing to avoid the most dominant race in boxing. However, it's another to avoid the second most dominant race in boxing. The moment Canelo arrived to 168, this man started preaching no Mexican fighters. He no longer interested in fighting any more Mexican fighters. The whole time, David Benavidez was the WBC champion. Canelo was never interested in that title. The moment David Benavidez miscalculated weight and lost the belt on the scale, that's the day Canelo requested to fight his sparring partner, Akhi Yildirim, for that belt. Now, this demand was so outrageous, just like Canelo did with Andre, where he requested to fight Smith for Andre WBO vacant belt. He did the same thing to David Benavidez. The only difference here, this fight went down as the cherry pick of the century. Canelo Alvarez lost his $365 million contract with DAZN for cherry picking and choosing to fight Avni Yildirim. More importantly, Canelo comment of him no longer fighting Mexicans is so hypocritical because he fought Chavez Jr., he fought Lopez Angulo, but when it came to an undefeated Mexican that can fight his ass off, David Benavidez, the moment Canelo has a real Mexican war on his hands, now all of a sudden he's no longer interested in fighting Mexican fighters. What a coincidence. Nevertheless, even though Canelo Alvarez embarrassed Mexico City by giving up the pride of Mexico to Charlo, it's safe to say that David Benavidez saved the day because he stepped up to the plate and challenged Charlo for the throne. This is why David Benavidez is the people champion. Without a belt, he's more of a champion than Canelo Alvarez with a belt. Now, the funny thing about boxing is that Canelo fans, for example, they will criticize Charlo for avoiding David Benavidez before September even arrives. You will never see a Canelo fan give Charlo the benefit of the doubt. Oh yeah, he's at 160. Nah, they will say he clearly avoided him. But with that same breath, they will turn around and defend Canelo Alvarez, who's in the same division as David Benavidez. And to make it worse, Canelo just stole David Benavidez's WBC belt. Canelo is a thief for the move he made requesting to fight Avni Yildirim for David Benavidez's WBC belt he lost on the scale. Not in the ring, on the scale. During the bubble, which is exactly what's wrong with the sport of boxing today. There's a whole lot of ducking going on, and the fans want to justify why their favorite fighter is avoiding the best, instead of encouraging their favorite fighters to fight the best. If it's up to the Canelo Alvarez fans, they will prefer Canelo to fight the likes of Avni Yildirim until he finishes his career. This is why they just a fighter fan, not a boxing fan. They will prefer to watch Avni Yildirim fight Canelo than Charlo fight Canelo. If you may wonder why, because the Charlo fight is a 50-50 fight. But the Avni fight is a guaranteed win. And that's all they care about. They are not boxing fans. But I'm glad Mike Tyson doesn't think so. Mike Tyson want to see Canelo fight the Charlo twins and David Benavidez, the same fighters Canelo is paying witness protection for. Furthermore, what's really wrong with the sport is when you have so-called boxing sweet scientists or experts, the likes of Akhi and Barack, when they watching the Avni Yildirim fight, they want to scream, who can beat Canelo? He's unbeatable. Well, how about you start with better competition? How about you start with the fighters Mike Tyson want to see Canelo up against? Both Akhi and Barack, they know Canelo said out of his own mouth that he does not like Andrade's style. If you may wonder why that is, Canelo said it's because he moves too much, he runs too much, it's boring. But ironically, Canelo is fighting Billy Joe Saunders next, a fighter coming off two horrible performances ever since Billy Joe Saunders was off the juice, off the steroids. More importantly, if Andrade is boring because he moves too much, then why are you fighting Billy Joe Saunders, who moves even more? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense now, does it? But it do make sense because Billy Joe Saunders is from Europe. On the other hand, Andrade happened to be one of the fighters on the coincidental list, which is the main race Canelo Alvarez have been avoiding. Do you guys know the last time Canelo Alvarez fought an undefeated Black American fighter, he lost, which was 8 years ago? And the last time Canelo fought a southpaw that could move and box, which was Lara, Canelo truly lost that fight. However, he robbed Lara in the process. This is why he wants no part of Andre. So again, when AK and Barack and DAZN continues to ask, who can beat Canelo? The answer is very simple. How about start off with the fighter Canelo personally told the public he doesn't like his style because he's not there to be hit. Canelo prefers to fight a fighter that's a punching bag, that's going to block with his face, who's not going to use the sweet science back on him. How can you be so-called pound for pound when you're not even the best in your division? When you continuously avoid the best in your division? No black fighters, no Mexican fighters, only Europeans. This is why Canelo is Europe pound for pound number one. This is why Canelo is the number one cherry picker pound for pound. How is Canelo going to claim he the best in the world, and on that same breath he admits he can't beat a particular style? That's why he continues to avoid that particular style. See, when Floyd Mayweather beat Manny Pacquiao, people were asking, who the heck can beat Mayweather, man? He made Pac-Man look like a nobody. He made him look average. Yeah, you can ask that question when Floyd Mayweather went up against one of the greats and made him look like a nobody. More importantly, Floyd Mayweather reigned for 20 years and fought the best and made the best look like a bunch of nobodies. The likes of Canelo, Pacquiao, Corrales, Hernandez, and the list goes on and on and on. So it makes sense if people wonder, who the heck can beat this man? Since Floyd fought the best and never lost. On the other hand, it makes no sense for people to wonder who can beat Canelo when he already lost on more than one occasion, if we are being truthful. He lost to Lara, and a lot of people say he lost to Triple G, not including Floyd, because that wasn't an L, that was a capital L. That wasn't a lesson, that was a capital L-O-S-T. Floyd was 36. He was a grandpa, and he pieced up Canelo like a piece of pie. Canelo was entering his prime at 23 years old at his bully weight division. On the other hand, Floyd Mayweather was a grandpa at his 5th weight division, where Canelo outweighed him from 15 to 20 pounds. Now, people have the audacity to question who would win prime for prime. That disrespect. If Floyd Mayweather is in his prime at his normal weight division, he would beat Canelo so bad. Floyd will kick Canelo from Mexico City all the way back to Ireland, where he's actually from. Because the way Canelo moves, he doesn't move like he's a real Mexican fighter. If Canelo couldn't beat Floyd when he had all the advantages on his side, such as youth, size, and everything you can name, how the heck he will beat Floyd prime for prime, especially if roles were reversed? That's why it made no sense at all when DAZN asked the penny question, who can beat Canelo? After he beat Avni Yildirim, as if he just beat Godzilla or something. Who could beat Canelo? How about start off with the fighters he been ducking? If you really want to know how to beat Canelo, how about start off with better competition? How about start off with the fighters Canelo personally told you guys he doesn't like their style because they move too much? As if Canelo wasn't running when he fought Triple G the first time. So why complain about other fighters that move around? See, the bigger picture is that old media and the decafs, they have been praying for a fighter to be as good as Floyd. However, not with his complexion. Not a Shakur, not a Devin, not a Crawford, not a Errol Spence, but a fighter that has the complexion for the connection to get the ultimate protection. Canelo complexion. However, regardless how hard they looked, they couldn't find anybody. This is why they started this protection franchise, in order to protect their favorite fighters. This is why old media makes ridiculous comments such as, who can beat Canelo? When they are protecting Canelo from the fighters that can beat him. In fact, the fighter that could beat Canelo right now fights for DAZN. Andre, he attended Canelo's last 2 fights. So do you think it was a coincidence that DAZN completely ignored their own fighter, Andre? This is all part of the plan, the witness protection franchise designation, which Canelo happened to be the pioneer for. And last but not least, you have these decafs that continuously bring up Kirkland and Daniel Jacob and ask, oh, are they not black? First of all, Kirkland was knocked out by someone with 6 knockouts on his record. And Canelo fought him after. Without Wolf as his trainer, more importantly, after a 1.5 year layoff, if I'm not mistaken, where he could have fought Jermell Charlo instead. However, he elected not to do so and caused Golden Boy to lose Jermell Charlo since he was promised that fight. Jermell Charlo happened to be from Texas, and he also happened to be undefeated. On the other hand, Daniel Jacob, he have been knocked out before. He also lost to Triple G and had a very close fight with Deveryachenko. This is when Canelo fought him. In other words, Daniel Jacob is beatable. Key words: undefeated Black American fighters. And the last time Canelo fought an undefeated Black American fighter was 8 years ago. And guess what? He lost that night, in which he made sure to avoid that style since then. So all the fans that continuously claim Canelo improved where? He haven't fought that style since then, since he lost to Lara and Floyd. With all of the facts being laid out, Canelo legacy will be remembered for ducking the best opponents and being the Europe pound for pound #1, the cherry picking king in the sport of boxing. This is Canelo legacy, the witness protection franchise designation that he's the pioneer for. Canelo will forever be remembered, not for fighting the best, but for ducking the best and claiming he the best. I mean, the audacity. More importantly, to the Canelo fangirls, it's always facts over opinion. Drop your thoughts in the comment section below, subscribe below, and click on the notification bell, and to be continued on the next episode of Akhi TV. Peace, and I'm on to the next one.